Tonight, from celebrating our most inspiring Australians to hotted up utes, thousands of Territorians mark today their own way. Huge crowds attend Invasion Day rallies across the country, renewing calls to change the date. Tens of thousands cut off from power as Cyclone Kirrily smashes the North Queensland coast. And no more Novak. Sinner strikes at the Australian Open, knocking out the 10-time champion in a match to remember. Good evening, Kyle Dowling with ABC News. From an Australia Day downpour in Darwin to the scorching summer heat in Central Australia, Territorians have each marked the public holiday in their own way in what's become a day of mixed emotions for many. Between the ute runs and protest rallies, some of the Territory's most incredible people were honoured with awards that recognise their contributions to our community. Samantha Dick begins our coverage.
If you didn't see them, you probably heard them. Darwin's annual Australia Day ute run got off to a flying start.
The old koala, he's about to have a bit of tucker, so I get the lamb on the spit.
I'd have to say I'm pretty excited. Probably just melting a little bit in the process, but hey, that's what the Territory is all about.
I've watched on YouTube and all that kind of thing, and I thought this year I'll give it a go.
A moment of calm at the starting line.
To make a ceremony is to cleanse the body, keep all the negative thoughts away from you and protect you from any evil stuff.
Before the chaos began.
Nearly 200 utes, 30 volunteers and thousands of dollars raised for children with disabilities. And despite threats of wet weather, participants say they've had a beaut time.
Away from the honking horns, a festival celebrating Darwin's diversity.
And I wanted to do the wheelchair basketball with my friends, but they're too shame job.
In Alice Springs, 48 new Australian citizens were welcomed, and in Katherine, a new local citizen of the year.
It's amazing being a part of the Katherine community because I was born and bred here and it's a diverse group of people.
Pausing to consider the significance of January 26.
You want to be able to be happy, but you also understand that, you know, it's something that's sad for a lot of Indigenous people.
A proud moment on a day of reflection. Samantha Dick, ABC News.
Many Indigenous Australians and their supporters mark today with Invasion Day marches and Survival Day events. Around the country, tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets, taking a stand against the day. Bringing city streets to a standstill, the gatherings drew a large crowd in all major cities. This year, organisers shared the stage with supporters of the Palestinian cause. In Darwin, hundreds of people gathered at an Invasion Day rally calling for Australia Day to be abolished or celebrated on a different date. It was one of many events that took place across the Northern Territory in support for First Nations people.
Signs in hand and chanting loud. Darwin's skies stay clear long enough for hundreds of people to march through the city streets on a day many now call Invasion Day.
Really proud of everyone for showing up, and I'm not sure about the numbers, but it felt like there were a lot of strong spirits and hearts here.
I'm just really happy and excited. My cup's now full from the march and I'm losing my voice.
Under this year's theme, Land Back, protesters weren't just calling for a change to the date of Australia Day.
The genocides in West Papua and Palestine and the ongoing destruction of Aboriginal lands are all the same violence.
So we're coming together as an Indigenous global community to ask for land back, to demand land back. Without having our land back, we can't get anywhere.
To show solidarity with Larrakia people, Aboriginal people, and show that, you know, I don't recognise this as Australia Day.
As support for change grows, so do events. The morning starting with an Australia Day fun run and a smoking ceremony at the Darwin waterfront.
And that smoke stays on you, and that represents the land.
What this is really about for us is trying to invite people to be a part of our culture.
The smoke, and we saw people like young kids covering their noses.
Elsewhere, protesters gathered outside Dowling Youth Detention Centre, calling for its closure.
How do we create hope, and how do we create the change that is going to give opportunity and justice and equality to everyone.
A day of mourning for many, but one that comes with a message of hope. Roxanne Fitzgerald, ABC News.
From the top end to the Red Centre, an Origin Nation Survival Day event is underway tonight in Alice Springs. Our reporter Lee Robertson is there. Lee, paint a picture for us. What's happening there at the moment?
Hi Carl, I'm here at the Telegraph Station in Alice Springs on Aranda Country. It's been a sweltering day here in the Alice, but it hasn't stopped hundreds of people of all ages coming down to the event this evening. They've said the focus of this event is peace, unity and restoration. And shortly behind me there'll be a smoking ceremony to officially open this event. There'll also be a bit of live music later and some kids' activities. And they've also got the barbecues going and a lot of Aboriginal flags decorating the park tonight, Carl.
And why did organisers put this event on?
Well, the organisers have said that this event is about celebrating the strength and resilience of Aboriginal people across Australia and keeping that culture alive for what has been 65,000 years now. They're also proud to have continued talking in their language and sharing stories, passing those down between generations. Now, I caught up with one of the organisers a little bit earlier. Here's what she had to say.
What we have is language and our culture still in our heads, and it's never going to change because we were taught by our old people of who we are here and how they survived. My family has survived for thousands of years in this country, and as far as we're concerned, we're still going to fight.
And the organisers have also said that after a year that was quite divisive in 2023 with the voice referendum, they're hoping for a year of healing ahead. And just behind me now, a smoking ceremony will commence and there'll be some live music later with crowds expected to stay on here later into the night, Kyle.
Thanks, Lee. A trailblazer, a teacher and a Territorian, Yalmay Yunupingu has been named the Senior Australian of the Year for her work helping her people and others in northeast Arnhem Land. The Australian of the Year was awarded to two cancer researchers receiving the top honour for their groundbreaking work on melanoma treatment. Professors Georgina Long and Richard Scolyer have changed melanoma from a fatal disease to one that's curable.
These Australians of the Year have a powerful message about cancer.
I stand here tonight as a terminal brain cancer patient. I'm only 57. I don't want to die.
Once a life-ending diagnosis, Professors Long and Scolyer have made melanoma survivable. Their pioneering treatment activates the patient's own immune system, saving thousands of lives. Now they're experimenting with the same science to fight Professor Scolyer's cancer.
And make a difference. If not for me, then for others.
On a day many spend under southern skies, the Australians of the Year want the culture of our sunburnt country to change.
There is nothing healthy about a tan. Nothing. Our bronzed Aussie culture is actually killing us.
An awards ceremony that honoured an empire of the sun also honoured the teaching of a language both ancient and contemporary. Yalmay Yunupingu has spent 40 years teaching Yolngu language.
When I speak to people, it's with quiet lightning and thunder, called Maradakton.
A force of nature for education and for healing.
Our people are sick and dying, young and old. My message is very clear. Yolngu bush medicine and healing is vital for Yolngu.
The 2024 local hero unearthed Australia's passion for paleontology and a multi-million-dollar boost for outback tourism.
Australia's future is inextricably linked to its past, and our children are its future custodians. The more they understand it, the better they will care for it.
The Queen of the Commonwealth and Olympic Games is the Young Australian of the Year. Australia's swimming great is now in a new lane as an ambassador for UNICEF.
Don't worry about the time it will take to achieve your dreams. We are capable of far more than we realise.
Inspirational Australians with a new platform for good. James Viver, ABC News, Canberra.
From artists and athletes to public servants and academics, just over 1,000 people have been recognised for their service in this year's Australia Day Honours List. And for only the second time, more women than men have received an award in the General Division.
This year's Order of Australia includes household names like plastic surgeon and 2005 Australian of the Year, Professor Fiona Wood. Her spray-on skin technique saved severely burned victims in the aftermath of the Bali bombings.
It is extraordinary to be recognised by one's peers and the community in this way. It really is sort of takes your breath away.
In Adelaide, Dr. David Squirrel couldn't continue practicing after losing most of his sight and hearing in 2008. He spent the next 15 years advocating for improved accessibility for people with disability.
It's a challenge, and one has to learn to adapt. Yes, you can get depressed, dejected, but you have to rise above that.
Former politicians featured too, like Lara Giddings, who at 23 was the youngest woman elected to an Australian parliament before eventually becoming Tasmania's first female premier in 2010.
My dad's no longer with us, but he was a man who loved his medals, and he had an Order of Australia medal himself, an OAM though, and I know how much that meant to him and just how proud he would be today.
Professor of Criminology at the University of Queensland, Lorraine Mazerol, is one of only 4 Companions of the Order this year, the highest rank. Her research advances innovative policing methods.
My research also shows that police, when they work in partnership with communities, when they work in partnership with other agencies like schools, they can actually be much more effective than when they work alone.
As an Aboriginal community police officer, Yolngu woman Bettina Dangambar is recognized for her work combating domestic violence and training police in providing culturally appropriate support.
It's very important because it builds a bridge on how we can work in both ways, Palanda and Yolngu.
Also recognized was colorful and at times controversial photographer Bill Henson.
I see it as a vote of confidence in Australia's culture, and particularly in its visual arts.
What about over here? What plants is it?
100-year-old Lillian Reese is the oldest recipient this year. While most people relax in their 80s, she dedicated her twilight years volunteering with sick children and their families.
People are not as kind or generous to each other. People always say, I haven't got time, but we always made time.
Golden advice from a golden girl and a member of the Order of Australia. Nabil Al-Nashar, ABC News.
In the Northern Territory, there's a wide diversity of people being honoured, from crocodile researchers to justices to theatre teachers. A total of 6 women and 6 men are receiving awards for the impact they've made in the community.
In true Territorian style, this year's Honour Award winners come from all walks of life. Graham Webb is now an Officer of the Order for his work in environmental and wildlife conservation, with a specialist interest in crocodiles.
The interesting part of what we've been involved with is not just the research and understanding crocs, but it's trying to work with the management so that crocs have a solid place in the Northern Territory.
He's played a major role in managing the relationship between crocodiles and humans, a feat perhaps more impressive than his Australia Day award.
It's humbling. It's lovely, of course. The accolades are wonderful, but for me personally, it's never been accolades that has been important. It's always been the outcome at the end of the day.
Jane Lloyd's workplace may look different to Graham's, but she too is being recognised for tackling some of the Territory's biggest challenges. She's helped thousands of Territorians by delivering drug and alcohol counselling, mental health support, childcare, domestic violence relief and more.
The work that we do does make a difference. It makes a tangible difference both in a big picture way but also just in the individual day-to-day lives of people.
She says it's important to recognise those doing thankless work.
It is really good to see people in our sector get recognised because the work is hard, and in particular to see women get recognised because we are also the backbone of this sector.
A familiar face to many in the Territory, Billawara Lee is also being honoured today. A senior elder, spiritual healer, teacher and author, Auntie B has dedicated her life to reviving and maintaining Larrakia culture. She's proud to be among several First Nations women being recognised.
So many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women do so much for the community. History has made it difficult for us, and to see them get recognised and honoured makes me feel so proud for them.
These Territory legends proving the NT deserves to be seen on a national stage. Isabella Tolhurst, ABC News, Darwin.
To other news, and rescue helicopters have attended a serious crash on the Arnhem Highway that's left several people with serious injuries. Close to a dozen emergency response vehicles rushed to the crash. St John Ambulance says 5 patients are involved and injuries are significant. The stretch of road remains closed in both directions tonight near the windows to the wetlands about 30 kilometres from the Stewart Highway turnoff. Territorians are being reminded to take care on wet roads this long weekend. Tens of thousands of North Queenslanders are spending a second night in the dark with ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily wreaking havoc with the region's network. The Chainsaw Army was out in force, beginning to mop up from last night's Category 2 system, but much of the region is relieved to have avoided major damage.
The severe system brought powerful winds and intense swells. But Kirrily's bark was mostly worse than her bite. It began as a Category 3, but at the last minute the tropical cyclone crossed the coast as a Category 2, just north of Townsville.
Parts of the city really only saw the effects of a Category 1.
It's really windy. You can really feel the wind shaking the whole house, but aside from that, pretty all right.
Winds up to 107 kilometres per hour were recorded. Off Townsville, this 30-foot yacht smashed and sank. The boat was uninsured.
It can't be a nice moment. We've all had close calls, so it's a bit of a scary thing.
There were similar scenes at Airlie Beach. A crane was called in to salvage it. Across North Queensland, strong winds have uprooted trees.
A bit more damage than I'd expected, I guess.
Crushing cars, twisting metal, ploughing through fences and bringing down power lines.
Probably a couple of days' worth of mess, but not too bad, nothing like Yazzie.
This Ayr church miraculously escaped a tree falling through its roof, but authorities say the region has dodged a bullet.
There has been minimal property damage. The biggest impact at this stage is on the energy network.
More than 60,000 customers lost power. Ergon says it could take crews up to a week to restore.
We've got about approximately 100 on the ground here locally. We've got 600 mobilising into Townsville over today and tomorrow.
Despite a big clean-up ahead, there's a sense of relief here in North Queensland that Kirrily's damage wasn't more severe. The weather system has now moved inland and authorities say it's still posing a risk. In the Gulf country, bridges are already going under. Other areas, though, missed out on the big falls.
Definitely nothing like what had been forecast.
Graziers are on the lookout for more. Lily Nothling, ABC News, Townsville.
The federal government has begun selling its reworked Stage 3 tax cuts, arguing they're carefully designed to relieve pressure on Middle Australia. But it's not just voters that need to be convinced, with the changes facing a potentially tricky path through the parliament. Here's political reporter Tom Lowry.
The pitch?
A bigger tax cut for more than 11 million Australians.
Including 2.9 million Australians who were going to get nothing on the 1st of July.
And the protest.
We have a liar in the lodge.
It's just a major break of trust. It's a betrayal.
Okay.
The government is selling its tax cut turnaround, arguing it's putting money in the pocket of Middle Australia.
When you have cost of living pressures on low and middle income workers, then you have a responsibility to do something about it.
The proposal halves the original tax cut for wealthier Australians, and bolsters the benefits for workers earning less than about $145,000 a year.
We know that it's not just 1.8 million people who are worse off under this package, but over the coming years it's going to be over 4 million Australians who are affected by it.
The government will need either the Coalition or Greens to back their plan to get it through Parliament. The Coalition hasn't committed either way, but the Greens are clear they want more.
If we're going to change the legislation, then we should do it in a way that really supports low and middle income earners.
We'll wait and see. We'll wait for them to go through their mechanisms as well. We'll talk with all of the crossbenchers.
Convincing the Parliament is one thing, convincing the public is another. The risk for the government is that voters happily accept and forget a tax cut, but remember a broken promise. Tom Lowry, ABC News, Canberra.
Israel says it's looking into allegations IDF forces opened fire on crowds in Gaza City, killing 20 Palestinians and injuring 150 waiting in line for food. Thousands of Palestinians are continuing to flee the main southern city of Khan Younis, where Israeli tanks have battered areas around 2 hospitals. Meanwhile, near the Israeli border, families of hostages have attempted to block the Kerem Shalom crossing in an effort to stop aid trucks going into the strip until all hostages are released. The International Court of Justice is preparing to rule on interim measures requested against the Israeli government over its war in Gaza. It comes after South Africa filed a case against Israel accusing it of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Europe correspondent Isabella Higgins is in The Hague for the ruling.
Well, all eyes will be on this court, with many around the world expected to tune into this highly anticipated decision. Now, while a final outcome in this case could take years, what we're expecting in a matter of hours is an interim ruling on the emergency measures requested by South Africa to try and rein in Israel's assault on Gaza. Earlier this month, we heard the first legal arguments from both South Africa and Israel. Now, lawyers for South Africa claim that the death and destruction levelled by Israel's military amounts to genocide, and claims that genocidal intent has been expressed by all levels of Israel's government. Now, Israel's legal team categorically rejects this. They say that South Africa is grossly distorting the truth and that their actions are justified under international law after Hamas's attack on October 7. So what the judges of the World Court have had to consider is if, whether at first glance or prima facie, if these allegations against Israel could constitute a breach under the Genocide Convention, and if emergency measures are needed to protect the rights of people in Gaza. Now, some have gone as far as describing these emergency measures as having the ability to act as a sort of temporary restraining order in this conflict. But while this interim ruling is legally binding for Israel, it can be ignored, and this court does not have any way to enforce it.
Spain's former soccer chief, Luis Rubiales, will face trial for kissing player Jenny Hermoso without her consent in the aftermath of her team's victory at the Women's World Cup. The investigative judge ruled that Rubiales' kiss after the final in Sydney was unconsented and carried out unilaterally and in a surprising fashion. State prosecutors accused Rubiales of sexual assault and of allegedly trying to coerce Hermoso to publicly support him during the growing backlash against him. Novak Djokovic is human after all. Chasing an 11th Australian Open title, the Serbian's reign at Melbourne Park is over after a shock loss to young Italian star Jannik Sinner. Sinner outplayed the world number 1 over 4 thrilling sets to win through to his first ever Grand Slam final.
A win for the new generation of tennis.
There's a new king in Melbourne.
Jannik Sinner has become the first Italian to reach an Australian Open singles final, beating a man who hadn't lost at Melbourne Park for more than 6 years. The young Italian was on top early.
What a start.
He broke the Serbian serve and won the opening set in just 35 minutes. Sinner's clean ball striking stunned Djokovic, who lamented unforced errors. Djokovic tried to get the pro-Serbian crowd involved, but Sinner, bursting with confidence, took the second set.
Sinner smashing this semi-final.
You can't keep a champion down.
Amazing.
Djokovic forced the third to a tiebreak, saved a match point before staying alive in the contest.
It's Djokovic on the breaker. We're going for.
But 22-year-old Sinner held his nerve in the fourth.
And this time he breaks.
Up a break, Sinner served for the match again, and a piece of history.
The confidence from end of last year has kept the belief that I can play against the best players in the world, and I'm really happy that I can play Sunday my first final, and let's see how it goes. But I'm really happy. I come here with a smile, and I try my best.
And defending champion Aryna Sabalenka will go into tomorrow's final as the raging favourite. Her straight sets victory over Coco Gauff was revenge for losing to the American at the US Open. It will be an enormous challenge for her next opponent, China's Qinwen Zheng, who will make her Grand Slam final debut. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
An inspired bowling performance from the West Indies has Australia on the ropes midway through the second day of the second test at the Gabba. After posting a competitive first innings total, the Tourist Quicks reduced Australia to 4 for 24 before Alex Carey launched a fight back.
The West Indies showed they had plenty of fight on day one, with the middle and lower order helping the tourists recover from 5 for 64 to go to stumps at 8 for 266. Joshua Da Silva's 79 and 71 from Kavem Hodge did most of the scoring damage, while a blistering 32 off just 22 deliveries from Alzari Joseph frustrated Australia's Quicks.
No respect at all from Joseph.
We showed some fight today. We showed fight in Adelaide with the ball. But yeah, it's about just showing people that West Indies, we're still here, and we want to show people that we deserve to be here.
On a gloomy second day, the fight continued, Kevin Sinclair making the most of his test debut. Newly crowned ICC Cricketer of the Year Pat Cummins brought himself on and immediately created a chance which went begging. When the wicket finally came, it was entirely of the West Indies' making.
Run out. Gotta be out.
Before Sinclair made his half-century, as the tourists were eventually dismissed for 311. Australia's run chase started in disastrous fashion. Steve Smith gone for 6 in his third innings as an opener. He wasn't alone in struggling against the tourist bowlers.
Edged away, great catch! That is a screamer!
Marnus Labuschagne, Cameron Green and Travis Head all departing before the long break as the hosts collapsed to 4 for 24. Mitch Marsh launched a counter-attack.
Up and over.
But it was short-lived. The all-rounder gone for 21. Australia's perilous position could have been worse. Alex Carey lucky to survive when the ball hit the top of the stumps but didn't dislodge the bails. Carey made the most of his reprieve, smashing a rapid half-century before he too fell to leave Australia with plenty of work to do. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
To the weather now, and tonight's weather pick at Howard Springs has been sent in by Kate Triska. Rain and showers across the northern and western parts of the top end and some storms further south of the NT. 31 for Darwin today, 32 degrees in Warramayunga. Zooming out, 33 degrees in Katherine, 28 for Jabiru and Maningrida, 30. 39 in Alice Springs today, Yalara 40 degrees and Tennant Creek 32. On the satellite, monsoonal cloud stretches across the top of the country and is spiralling into Queensland. A large band of cloud extends from WA along the south. Ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily is expected to track slowly over central inland parts of Queensland, and there's a trough which stretches west through central Australia. Interstate tomorrow, 21 degrees for Hobart, Melbourne 23, 27 degrees for Canberra, Sydney 26, rain and 36 for Brisbane, and a sunny 33 for Perth. Back in the Territory tomorrow, a sunny 37 in Alice Springs, 40 for Papunya and 39 in Tennant Creek. Further north, 33 and showers and a possible storm in Katherine, Daly Waters 34 and a top of 33 in Bullman. To the west, 32 in Wadair and Darwin, 30 degrees with heavy rain expected tomorrow. A flood watch remains in place in parts of central eastern NT. Heavy rainfall is expected across the area next week. Barkly, Central Desert, Georgina River and Eyre Creek catchments are expected to be impacted. The morning high tide will be just after 6 o'clock and there's a marine wind warning tomorrow for the Arafura Coast, Go Peninsula Coast and Rupert Groot Coast. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:37 and set at 7:21. And looking ahead, showers and storms continuing, possible heavy falls tomorrow and Sunday, and a medium chance to high chance of rain through next week as well. In Alice Springs, temperatures still hovering close to 40 degrees, sunny conditions expected to continue. And that's ABC News for this Friday night. Thanks for your company and good night.